Good morning. Happy Mother's Day to all of our mothers who are in attendance today. The other night, Janice and I were doing one of our evening rituals, and that's sitting in the recliners watching television. And she was looking at something on her phone, and she began reading aloud to me where there was a person that was applying for a job. And in that job was to last 365 days a year. There were no vacations. And it continued on that there would be no pay. There would be no breaks, no 15-minute breaks, those things. And finally, at the end, as they kept going through all of these horrible things, and you could hear people in the background saying, "I don't want this job," it was the job of a mother. And I think that that's interesting. And this morning, today, we celebrate Mother's Day. And once again, what a way to celebrate. What a better way to celebrate than to be gathered in the Lord's church and studying His marvelous word and singing praises unto His name. But we're celebrating this Mother's Day. These are some difficult times. But I think that we should take a moment this morning and look at how God works through difficult times. Throughout the Bible, you can find moms that faced great feats and some very difficult times. And yet they raised their babies throughout all of it. You know, the one that I'm going to point out today is Naomi. And if you would open your Bibles to Ruth chapter 1, and we will begin by looking at verses 1 through 6. And then let's see how God works in this mom's life, and including the world that is around her. Beginning in Ruth chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judea, went to sojourn in the country of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the names of 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites of Bethlehem of Judea, simply meaning that they were from Bethlehem of Judea. And they came into the country of Moab, and they continued there. And Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left and her 2 sons. And they took them wives of the women of Moab. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. And they dwelled there about 10 years. And Mahlon and Chilion died also, both of them, and the woman was left of her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law, that she might return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the country of Moab how that the Lord had visited his people in giving them bread. Naomi is the mom, if you really look at it, who lost it all. She lost it all. I place her in the position of Job. And if you think about it, what did Job's wife tell Job when he was going through all of these horrible situations that he went through and he lost everything? What'd she tell him? Why don't you curse God and die? But I think it helps us to ask some questions. What could God be doing in this situation with Naomi? And why did this happen? Why did this happen to Naomi? Oh, let's remember that you and I serve a God who can. We serve a God who has always had a plan. Something that is often overlooked and forgotten is the fact that God is omnipotent. He is omnipotent and omnipresent. The word means that he is all-knowing, that there is nothing that God doesn't already know. And he is all-powerful. You know, I ran across a little story about a Sunday school teacher who was teaching on God's omnipotence. And as a matter of fact, this Sunday school teacher had just finished this subject, and she was asking her students some questions. And one of the questions that she asked, is there anything that God can't do? Well, you know what? She was really kind of discouraged and disappointed, because all in the classroom there wasn't anything but silence. Finally, one boy in the back of the classroom held up his hand. The teacher, on seeing this, she was just really discouraged. She says, my goodness, I've done all of this teaching, and they have missed the point entirely of this lesson. She sighed, and with disgust, she said, well, go ahead and tell me what you think God can't do. Well, the young man replied, he can't please everybody. Well, you know, that's the answer. That's the answer. Going through the storm or difficulty never is fun. It's not, but when the pain is done, when it's all over, you know, then the happiness begins. But notice, I want you to notice something very clearly. I said happiness. I didn't say anything about joy. The things of this world may take our happiness. They very well may take our happiness away, but they absolutely cannot take away our joy. The psalmist writes in Psalms 30 and verse 5, for his anger endureth but a moment, in his favor is life. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. You know, this precious mother that we're talking about, she has lost the love of her life. She has lost her husband, and then she has lost her two beloved sons. No, weeping, I am sure that she was weeping, and I don't think that there's any words that I can come up with that are strong enough to tell about her weeping and the anguish that she was going through. But it does bring a question to mind. Who does she blame? Who does Naomi blame for her misery? Who does she blame for her misery? And does she blame God? Does she blame God for all of this that has taken place? No. I believe what she does is what many mothers do. She took all of the pain upon herself. Listen, go down to verse 7. Go with me through verse 7 through 13. And look at what it says. It says, wherefore she went forth out of the place where she was, and her two daughters-in-law with her. And they went out the way to return unto the land of Judah. And Naomi said unto her two daughters-in-law, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you, as ye have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that ye may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said unto her, Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. And Naomi said, Turn again, my daughters, why will ye go with me? Are there yet any more sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons. Would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters, for it giveth me much for your sake that the hand of the Lord is gone out against me. So the question is, who was at fault? Who was really at fault here? She was the one deserving of God's judgment. She didn't blame her husband or her sons. In this, she shows to us a motherly heart. Go, leave me to be alone, but you can continue to be blessed. You know, Naomi knew that to be with her only meant to be more of a burden. Do you think that that was God's plan? Do you think that was his plan? In Naomi's mind, her life was over. Her husband and her sons were gone. Along with that, her means for making a living. They were slim to none. They were pretty much gone. Now, another question. Let me ask you this. Do you see in any of these that I've talked about, do you see any of us in this equation? Do you? Since the beginning, since the very beginning of this virus, according to what I was able to find, 33 million people have filed for unemployment benefits. 33 million people have applied for unemployment benefits. God doesn't think like us. He just does not think like us. At the moment of job loss, we immediately think of the worst. And at the moment we are angered at someone. We're wanting to blame somebody. We tend to think the worst. That's not all of us, but it happens in different ways in all of us because we're not perfect, but God is perfect. As Israel they had gone the full length away from God. That from Baal worship, they had gone from Baal worship to Ashtaroth and worshiping the golden calf like it was God. For us, if that was done to us, that would be immediate dismissal or destruction. But listen to God. Listen to God, brethren. Look at him in Hosea chapter 11, verse 9. I will not execute the fierceness of mine anger. I will not return to destroy Ephraim, for I am God and not man, the Holy One in the midst of thee, and I will not enter into the city. God always has a plan. And that plan is to save who? To save you and me. Just like a mother that always wants the best for her child and giving up much, if not all, of what she has to achieve that goal, to watch after her children. Mothers are willing to give. So from the Garden of Eden to Christ, to our eternity, God has a plan. He had a plan from the foundation of the world for our salvation. For Naomi, the plan was Ruth, her daughter, who wasn't really her daughter. But God had given Naomi a precious, loving daughter for one purpose: to bless her, to bless Naomi. Ruth had been Naomi's daughter-in-law for 10 years. And at the request for her to leave her new mother, she cleaved to her. Ruth was showing the motherly compassion back to Naomi. Listen to Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 and 17. And Ruth said, "Entreat me not to leave thee, to return from following after thee. For whether thou goest, I will go, and whether thou lodgest, I will lodge. Thy people shall be my people, and thy God my God. When thou diest, where thou diest, I will die, and there will be buried. The Lord do so to me, and more also, if aught but the death part thee and me." She was willing. She was willing to give everything for her mother. This is the picture, brethren, of Christians. Then that makes me ask another question. Why are we willing to give up much, even to our very own lives, for Christ? It's because we're returning the love, the compassion that was delivered to you and me. From this moment, Ruth goes from being a servant to meeting her kinsman's redeemer, Boaz. Then God's blessing to Naomi is really revealed. In Ruth chapter 4 and verse 17, "And the woman, her neighbors, gave it a name, saying, There is a son born to Naomi, and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David." Ruth's baby is called Naomi's son. He is the grandfather, if you think about it, of the greatest king to ever reign on earth. From great sorrow to great blessings. From the time of Naomi and Ruth leaving Moab to the conception of Obed took 10 to 20 years. Then the blessing was shown. This is the picture of Mother's Day and our current situation. In all of this, remember this: God has a plan. For all that has been reborn by the redemption that comes through Jesus Christ, God has a plan. Our every breath is a breath that brings us closer to eternity with our Redeemer. That's our greatest blessing, and it only comes through Jesus, our Redeemer and our God as a provider. Let's celebrate Mother's Day and all the blessings that we have enjoyed together. But brethren, don't ever forget that God has a plan. And that plan includes the fact that if you want to be one of his children, that you need to confess his name, to be buried in baptism and raised to walk in the newness of life. If you've done that, knowing you've turned away from Him, how sad that is. Because God has done great things for us, continues to bless us with many things. If you've done that, you need to come back to Him. Ask Him for His forgiveness. Today would be a good day to do that. If you have need of the gospel invitation, won't you come while together we stand and sing?
Some bright morning when this life is over,
I'll find a way to a home on God's celestial shore.